Okay, so today we're going to do a totally different type of video. I've done topics from my hip replacement, which I had done 18 months ago. I obviously do Tesla videos as well because I have a Tesla car. But I also historically my trade when I left high school or school in the UK was a mechanical engineer. So I did a 4-year apprenticeship, and I do like to keep my hands in with practical things, making things. Even though I'm an IT manager, so my subject now is IT daily, management of IT. But I do like to keep my hands in. So in my garage, which is what this is now, it's a little bit like Doctor Who's TARDIS because the amount of stuff I have in my garage is absolutely crazy. I've got a lathe, I have a welder, bandsaws, all sorts of things, and it's a single garage in the UK. So today's video is a little bit different because quite often nowadays there are a lot of 3D printed parts, and I used to have a CNC machine which I didn't really use a lot, so in effect I sold that and I used part of the funds to go towards a Tesla, but also to buy a CNC machine. At work we actually use one. We print some parts out for some of the stuff that my team look after, but we also the one we have at work is an Ultimaker 2. We bought an upgrade kit for it to make it an Ultimaker 2 Plus, and that works very well. But the price of that was probably the best part of £2,000, so quite a bit of money, but for quite a small build volume. So what I decided to do is I had a look around, and I saw one of the common ones is the Creality 3D printer, and I thought, well, I'm going to buy one of these probably once every so often, every good few years, and I thought I'd take advantage of getting a bigger build volume for this one. So this is a CR10S 5, so 5 is a 500mm or half meter build volume, which is huge. I don't personally use that often, but it's there if I need it. So today's subject: when you get into 3D printing, you do spend quite a lot of time with the prints, adjusting the print bed to adjust it for make sure you get a good first level and the printer adheres well to the bed. But there are a lot of printers out there and kits to allow auto bed leveling. So what auto bed leveling does, and again I'm not an expert in any of this, I'm just picking up as I go along because of my engineering background, it does help me. Auto bed leveling is basically a sensor attached to the print head, and what that does basically is it measures, it's basically an on-off switch that uses distance, senses distance, and it measures the print bed in various places. And then what it does as part of a little routine, it measures the bed, how many times you tell it, and then stores those values away, and when it comes to do the print, it automatically adjusts and compensates for the discrepancies in the bed. So in effect, if you've got a bed like that, it adjusts the settings and the print dimensions so that it keeps on track with the bed rather than going like and having a lot of gap here. So I decided to buy one and fit it. There are various makes out there. I don't get sponsored by anybody. I just decided to buy the CR10 one from Creality themselves, which in theory is a good idea, which is where this video comes in. So I've seen other people suffering the same issues that I had with my bed sensor when I first got it. Where the initial issues I had was with the sort of factory installed firmware. That's one of the key things. The factory installs firmware. One, it wouldn't sense the bed, and two, it would only go up, not down, when I connected the thing up. So that's where I started investigating, looking at YouTube videos, etc, etc. The key thing around the vast majority of 3D printers is the firmware. And when you look on the Creality website, which you can do, you can download the firmware for the various 3D printers. and they're a little bit you know, not reliable, because some of them will say it's got 3D printed, 3D bed leveling or auto bed leveling built in. Doesn't overly work. And then you've got different bed sizes, so you need a firmware that's got auto bed leveling and set up for your printed bed, and various things. So first thing is, if you are going down this route, always make sure, and this is in programming in general, because I have done programming in the past as well, always make sure you can get back to your starting point if you make a mistake. So there is the firmware on the Creality website, and that's in the form of a hex file, and I'll try and show you how to upload that shortly as part of this video. But most of firmware for 3D printers is based around the Marlin firmware. The Marlin firmware, from what I find, is open source. It's published, and it's a fantastic bit of firmware where you can customize it how you wish for your 3D printer, and it will work with a huge amount of 3D printers. But the one we are interested in, obviously, the Creality one. So what I will show as part of this video later on is the settings, if I can remember them all, the settings to make sure that your Creality CR10S, S is the key, works with the auto bed leveling. My setup at this moment is by far perfect, because the SD card isn't working, but I need to tweak that, and there are ways around the SD card not working. I think they're quite good. So first things first, to do the firmware you need to basically download the Arduino development environment. You can get that off the internet, not a problem. Download that, install it. Then what I suggest you do is go to the Marlin website and download the standard reliable build, not the beta build or anything, but the reliable build of Marlin. Download that to a PC and expand the zip file that you expand. That again then sits in a folder, and then you edit all the, or probably edit one or two files to be fair, and then you modify the firmware to tweak it for your printer. So we'll show that in the video. It's the first time I've done a screen recording, so we'll do that, see how that goes, add it to the video. And then, you know, I might add a little bit at the end of the video, just explaining to one or two other little bits. But again, like all my other videos, please give me feedback. You know, I'm not an expert in this sort of thing. I am learning as I go along. There are far people who are far more skillful in this than I am. But somebody did said, oh, I've got a problem with my CR10, I can't get it working, it's not doing this, not doing that. Can you help me out? So this is why this video's come. So hopefully you like it. If you do, give me a thumbs up, and have a look at some of my other videos. Thank you. Okay, so as first thing you need to do, when you get your CR10 printer, you'll see this is the Z-axis end stop, which is in effect fixed on the side of a printer in this location. What I did is I fixed my end stop on a 3D printed bracket, and then made it fit more on the side of the printer here, and then that had a bracket that came off here, so basically that pushed down on the end point, the Z-axis stop, instead of down here, so that was a bit better for me. So the first thing you need to do is you need to unplug the cable from the end stop. Okay, so I'll try and film this the best I can with my camera and see how we go on from here. Okay, so the first thing we do is we unplug the connector from the Z end stop. And then one thing that Creality forget to tell you is the pins or connectors that go into this block here. They forget to tell you that they actually need to be swapped round. Now mine are already swapped round, so I'm not going to swap them round. But what you need to do very carefully, and I found the best way to do this, you'll see some openings on here. And what I do very carefully is, let me just I actually use the pair of tweezers, and I think they come with Creality, I'm not sure, but basically very gently push in here, and there are some little clips. Work on them one at a time, gently push them in until you can tease the cables out. And again, if you push them too much, you'll see they come out quite easy. So I have to be careful when I'm putting this back in the block. And the best way to look is look at the Z on the cable, and when you've obviously got them the right way around, certainly in my instance, the Z is on this one and that's on that one. So that's the first step done. Then what you can do is when the little circuit board that comes with the sensor, you basically put that into there, and that's it, and make sure those are in. You'll also see a little hole here. When you turn that on for the mains with the adapter that comes with the sensor, you'll see a little blue light come on. Now there is a company, TH3D, which they do their own sensor, and they have their own circuit board, and their circuit board functions differently than the Creality circuit board, and that's what threw me originally. I thought this light should go on and off same as the light on the end of the sensor, but it doesn't do. So this stays on all the time. So that's the first bit done. So you can basically retire that. I keep that just in case I need to use my printer again and it fails. Now what we'll do, we'll have a look at the setup of the sensor on the printer itself. So now we're going to have a look at the sensor. Now when you get the printer initially, you get the cover that goes over the hot end, and what they provide is a little metal bracket like this, and that mounts on the left hand side, so in effect like that when it's assembled, which is okay. But I decided to do one of the 3D printed new fangs, I think they call them, which had a sensor mount in there. So I've gone this. I may put this back on at some point, I haven't decided, I'm still playing about with this. But the key thing is when you mount the sensor in here, you'll see the red light at the top here, and that basically has to be roughly about 2mm higher than the end of the hot end. So I'll try and show that now. So if you can hopefully see the hot end, which is down here, and the sensor here. Now what I used was a washer, roughly 2mm, that I had in my garage, and when the hot end was touching the bed plate, this was quite a nice fit under there. You'll see there's a bit of a gap there anyway, and that's because the hot end is not on the heated bed on the bed. So the hot end needs to be on the bed, and then adjust the two nuts here until that slightly fits under there and is a nice fit, and that should be set up. The next thing you need to do is, once that's done, is you need to adjust the trimming mechanism on top of the sensor. So you see the light on top of the sensor, the bed sensor, which means it can actually pick up the bed here, and that basically picks up the distance. Now there is a trimming screw on the top which you can adjust with a very small flat bladed screwdriver. That goes in the trimming screw, and basically you turn it clockwise or anti-clockwise. Now you'll see the light's already on. If I turn it anti-clockwise, the light should go off, so it can't detect the bed. So you turn it a little bit further until it comes on, and then back off again, and then back on, and that's adjusted so you know it fixed the bed. But there are other settings within the firmware and within the menu on the printer that can adjust this finely and compensate for any little error and things like that. So that's the sensor setup, and the main part of this video now will be about the settings in the firmware. And again, I'm still playing about with these to see how we go on. But the main thing is about adjusting the firmware and getting it to work with the printer finally. Okay, so this is on my PC that I use. You'll see that we've got a link to the Arduino development environment, and I've got a couple of folders here with various versions of Marlin that I've been trying to get working with the bed sensor. And this was an older version from Print Solid on one of the websites. It's an older version of Marlin. I got it working with this first of all, so then I downloaded the latest version and I transferred the changes in here into this one manually, one by one, to see how we went on and got it working. And then there's a little utility here that TH3D provide, called G-code sender. You can probably get it for the internet, and that's quite useful for testing the bed sensor with the controller. So let's have a look at the settings within Marlin itself. So there's two ways you can do it. You can basically open Marlin by double clicking on it and then opening the latest. If you do a search here and do for Marlin, you'll see the marlin.ino file. Those in effect are the project files that you open. You open that, it opens everything else. So either open the Arduino or just double click on this. So if we double click on that one, that will open that file up into the Arduino development environment. Now again, I stress that the version of printer I have is the Creality CR10S, so that's got its own I think it's called a bootloader built into it. On the 10s, I believe you have to mess about with a separate board. So thankfully, I don't have to do that, and I quite happily just use the 10S, and I can flash the firmware as many times as I want. Depending on your PC, it does take a little bit of time to open, and you'll see it now on screen as we speak. So the key things are here. These are the individual files that are within the Marlin firmware to make this thing work. And what you find, certainly I found anyway, initially to get it working, you only need to tweak one or two files. If you want to do more tweaks that I haven't got to yet, you would open edit quite a lot more of these files. So the first one that we look at is the configuration H, and again I apologise if I'm getting some of these wrong. Like I say, I'm just learning this as we go along, and it has been a matter of trial and error, but I have managed to get it working. So we basically scroll down. Obviously you've got the scroll bar here, that gives you some indication as to how far you're travelling down. But basically I work from the top and I just work down, and the key things to look out for are the double backslashes, the double forward slashes. The double forward slashes basically are comment lines. So by removing or adding the forward slashes, they disable or enable different parts of the Marlin firmware. So again, some of these have not changed whatsoever. You'll see that the baud rate's the same, a lot of this other stuff. And again, what I would stress is make one change. If it compiles, fine. If not, then you've made a mistake. And I would literally make one change, compile it, upload it to the printer, see if it works. If it doesn't, tweak it again. So the first thing we look at is here, custom machine name. That you can change to whatever you want. So I've used that to identify which version of firmware I'm messing about with and changing. So my machine on the screen displays CR10S 5GB for my name. We've then got one extruder. Filament size I've left the same. Again, this is something with Cyclops. Multi extruder, leave that alone. Switching extruder, no. Switching nozzle, no. Parking extruder, no. Leave that alone. Mixing extruders, power supplies, leave it alone. A lot of temperature settings, I've not changed those whatsoever. No, I've not changed those. Bed temperature control, no, I've not changed those. A little bit further down. No. No, leave these. No. Steppers, left them alone. Feed rates I've not changed, accelerations have not changed, jerk values. I think this is one of the key things here. I have not changed this, I don't think, but Z minimum probe uses Z end stop pin, so this is something to do with the electronics and using the sensor correctly. Again, Z minimum probe end stop, I've got that commented out. Now, one of the key things is, I think more often than not, this here, probe manually, is enabled, and by enabled it is like, in effect, that. So, by having that manual, no matter what you do, I believe, you can't get the auto bed leveling to work. It will always ask you to press the button in between separate probes. So, I've made sure that's that. The other thing is the fixed mounted probe. So I have taken out the comments of that, so they've gone. So I'm using a fixed mounted probe. Nothing else I've changed down here. Nothing heaters. Now this is the other one, and again I've done these approximate. So this is the position of the probe relative to the hot end, and by looking at this little diagram here, you'll see that my probe was on the right hand side, which means it gets a positive value, and you won't be able to see it, but it's slightly to the front of the hot end, which means it attracts a negative value. So I've measured it, so it's to the right 48mm and it's to the front 15mm. And the probe is 1.2mm in effect higher, well, should have been 2, but 1.2mm higher than the hot end. So you can adjust these as you go. The other one here which I found useful is the it limits how far the probe can go to the end, and I've had to play about with this a little bit, and I think I've still some more work to do on this, but initially I've set it to 50mm to stay away from the edge of the bed. Okay, nothing else changed there, nothing else changed there. This one, M48 repeatability test, these are one of the few things that you can enable within the firmware, and they appear on the menu, or you can run them within the G-code, because within the controller itself, using the G-code sender. M48 repeatability test. If you send an M48 to the sensor, it basically goes up and down a number of times and works how far out the bed the repeatability test is. So it might be something like 0.001mm out, but that's useful to enable. I've enabled that later on once I've got the thing working in general. Okay, nothing in there, nothing there. Okay, nothing there. Here's a useful one. Now this is your bed size, so you adjust that. So 500mm for mine, the default one I believe is 300mm. So you set the X and Y bed size to 500mm or 300 respectively, or even 400 for the S4, and likewise the Z height to 500. This one was a key one which I've changed recently. what I found was that the probe would come down and find the bed, but I could not adjust the probe then to go further down or closer to the glass, and that was because the software was limiting it, in effect saying that you will not move below 0. By commenting this out and putting the 2 forward slashes in, which I have done now, it allows me to move the hot end down manually using the wheel, even though it's set the 0 point for the Z. So I'll try, and if I need to, I'll do an extra video for these sort of things just to see what happens. And again, I've disabled the maximum end stop values. Run out sensors, no, that's standard, I haven't changed that one. Bed leveling, so this is the interesting bit here. So mesh bed leveling I think works on a standard grid, but I've enabled bilinear one. I haven't really read too much in the difference. You've got the explanation up here, but I've got it working, so I haven't done anything from there. So basically what this does now, it will enable all the points below here that are enabled for auto bed leveling bilinear. So if I scroll down, mesh, bilinear, so it will action those, UBL, segments, not change any of that, validation, I don't think I've changed any of that, bed leveling linear, bed leveling bilinear, so it will action this. Now by changing that value there to 3, well standard I think is 3, if you change it to 5, it will in effect sample a 5x5 grid on the bed to establish a mesh and how level your bed is, and use that within your firmware. So it just, when you're testing, it's always good to set this to a lower value because it just doesn't take as long to run. I will probably put this up to 5 later, but I've left it at 3. They recommend, I believe, you don't go beyond 7. You'll see here I've got some lines that I've commented out. These I put in when I was testing to hard code the sizes, but now I've reverted back to the standard lines within the firmware. Bilinear, yeah, it does that. Not done anything changing on UBL. It's not that one. No, not done anything. That mesh bed leveling. No, that's mesh. We're not doing mesh. LCD bed leveling. Okay, so with this one here, you normally get that, I believe. So I've taken it out, so it allows me to select bed leveling on the menu manually to sample the bed leveling when you first power the machine up. Also, likewise, level bed corners, removing the 2 slashes, puts a menu option on to level and sample the corners. Homing, this set is at 0, 0, so basically your 0, 0 point of your coordinates will be at the centre of bed. I've left that commented out. But safe homing is recommended, so allows Z homing after X and Y homing instead are enabled. So I've taken the comments out from there and left that like that. Nothing in there. I think there was 1 or 2 of these commented, which I think I've taken out now, so that's a reference if you want to have a look. Keep alive features, no. Now this is quite useful. I've learnt this off one of the other guys' videos. If you set the values here to whatever temperatures you want, this one here I believe is the PLA settings on the menu. So when I pick PLA on the menu, I get 220 degrees hot end and 60 bed, and if I pick ABS, I think I get 235 and 60. So that's been quite useful by setting these values. Nozzle park feature, I'm not know about that one. There's a cleaning feature they've put in that's testing. I've not tried that one. SD card support. So at the moment my SD card is not working, so I need to work that bit out, and if anybody's got any ideas on that, please let me know. So I need to sort that one out. But like I say, I can still send files to it using a piece of software called Octoprint on a Raspberry Pi. Nothing else. Speaker buzzer yet. Turn that on to make it go buzz buzz, so that's quite useful. One of the other guys told me to uncomment this one from one of the other videos, so I've done that. It's not, I haven't noticed any difference, but I've left that ticked. I mean, you can see now we're getting to the we're getting down to the bottom end. I don't think I've changed anything down here. No. No. I see a lot of comments. So no, I'm not changing any of this sort of stuff. Okay, the other one that you can change is the config advanced file, and I don't believe I've changed anything in here whatsoever. Just have a quick scan through. It's not as big. See if anything jogs my memory. No. Temperatures, fans. No. You'll see things like that. I haven't changed this, but define LCD info. That means that on the menu it displays the state. It allows you to pick the info of the printer by clicking on the button, so it enables or disables options within the menu. LCD progress bar. That's LCD support. Again, there's probably something I need to tweak in here to get that working. Alphabetical sorting, long file names, end of baby stepping. Baby stepping is a really important one. Yes, there's one that I have enabled. Baby stepping is a really good feature. Normally on the printers, when you set them going, you have to adjust the wheels underneath the bed to make sure you get a first bed good layer. By enable baby stepping, when you set your print going, you can go into baby stepping and adjust an offset for the head, and that's really good. So you can adjust the head rather than the bed to let you get a good first layer. So that's really worth enabling, which I did do in there. By standard, that's not enabled on the Creality firmware. Buffers. A lot of stepper stuff. And I think that's about it. So the key thing now is what you do is you have your controller board, your controller connected with the USB cable that comes with your printer, and there's obviously the USB port on the side of your print controller. Your PC in effect will power that up enough to make it run, and the first thing you do when you're happy with the changes is you click on verify, and you'll see in the bottom right hand corner here it will compile the sketch. It will take a good few minutes. I'll cut this bit out because it does take a little while to do, and then the next thing you do after that is you do the upload. The upload will again very quickly check the compilation, upload it to the printer, and the printer will then restart and have the new firmware uploaded to it. Once that's happened, you power the 3D printer on, and then you can see if your auto bed leveling etc. works happily. Okay, so at the moment the control unit is connected to the PC with a USB cable, which we can see here on the left hand side. That's connected there, and you'll notice that there's no fans going on the control unit itself. That is being solely powered by the USB power of the PC. So when we turn on the controller, you can hear the fans go on the printer itself, and you'll see that there is the name that I put in the firmware myself, edited it. You'll see here top left it's actually saying a CR10S 300. That's actually built up of a graphical hexadecimal coding within the file, and I haven't finally worked out how to change that, but once I've found out how to do that properly, I'll modify that and I'll change it to be a 10S 500 just so it looks right. The key things that come on here now is if you click on the button and you go to the info screen, about the printer, printer info, it'll tell you the version of Marlin software and where it's come from and the version number itself, and also you can get the board information as well. But the main thing we're going to look at now is the bed leveling and what's been enabled. So if we press on the button and then go to prepare, you'll see that you have bed leveling enabled in here. Now bed leveling, from what I've seen so far, will not work until you auto home it first of all. So we'll do a quick auto home, and then I'll show you the bed leveling, and we'll pan over to the bed leveling to show you how that's working. Okay, so the printer now is homed on the center, and we're now going to select prepare, bed leveling and level bed. And you'll see the printer then goes 1 point, 2, 3. Now it's doing 9 points because I set within the firmware a number of 3. If I'd have set 5, it would have done 25 points. And it's doing the final point there, and that's bed leveled. Okay, so to just verify that the G code's working and the auto bed leveling working, if we go to G code sender, we open that, and we can when it starts up, quite a basic application. You'll see the port number it's connecting to. You can look at that through your device settings and the baud rate. If we click connect, it connects and it gets some feedback from the controller itself. Now G codes here are very similar to CNC G codes, and that's what they've used to interpret and how to make the 3D printers working, so it's almost like an industry standard. So I've learnt some of these as I've gone along. So if you do an M119 and enter, you'll see that the filament is triggered and the X, Y and Z are open. If we put something underneath the sensor to simulate there's something under there, and we repeat the command, and we do 119, you'll see now the Z minimum's triggered as well. Again, do it again without, it's open. That shows you the sensor is working correctly. Now, like I said, before the auto bed leveling will work, you've got to do a home, which is G28. We do that, and in the background you can probably hear the printer moving. That's doing the home. And that's done its stuff, and then we do a G29, which is with the bed leveling, and off we go. And like I said, the more points you put in this, the longer it actually takes to run and to process. But what it will spit out, you'll see, is an array or a matrix of values, which then you can paste into another website that's quite useful, and that shows you how level your bed is in effect. Got 2 more values to go. Incidentally, if your bed is far out of level, or your dual Z screws is slightly out, so i.e. one's higher than the other, it will actually fail on the bed leveling. So you just need to make sure that both Z axes are very similar in terms of being parallel to the bed. So you'll see there that it's returned some values between 0.09mm and 1.3mm. But because it's worked, the software will actually use those values to accommodate for the unevenness of the bed, and that's a good test to make sure the bed leveling is working. Okay, so hopefully this video has been some use. First time I've tried one of these videos, so it is a little bit difficult to do, but we'll see how it goes. If you find it any use, give me some positive comments, whatever. Quite happy to receive, good or bad. If you need any more help, please let me know. I'll try and do the best I can do. That's my best explanation of how to get the auto bed leveling working with the Creality printer. And if somebody does know how to get the SD card working with the CR10 and the Marlin firmware and the individual lines to enable, please let me know. So again, if you like it, give it a thumbs up, and hopefully look at my other videos. Thank you.